The alien Empress's arrogance broken, humanity's 200 supercarriers strike back. The galaxy had long whispered about the arrival of the alien Empress, a being so powerful, so arrogant, that she believed no force in the universe could challenge her reign. Her empire spanned hundreds of star systems, and her fleet of warships was a terrifying sight, capable of obliterating entire planets with a single command. She believed humanity, with its relatively primitive technology, was nothing more than a fleeting nuisance, something to crush underfoot as she expanded her dominion. For centuries, humanity had been pushed to the brink. Alien species, such as the ruthless Zorvax and the calculating Kreenox, had invaded Earth, attempted to enslave its people, and exacted their cruel vengeance. The Empress had always watched from the shadows, assuming that the humans would eventually bend to her will. But humanity had a secret that the Empress had failed to see. It began on Earth's 300th anniversary since the invasion. The Empress sent her fleet to Earth's system once again, confident that this time, her victory was inevitable. She did not understand how humans had defied the odds for so long. She'd watched the slow, steady development of their technology, their resilience, and their sheer will to survive, but she had dismissed it as nothing compared to the might of her empire. As her fleet neared, she issued a command that was meant to be the final blow: destroy Earth. Let nothing remain. Her flagship, the Vanguard of Ascension, a massive warship equipped with energy cannons capable of erasing entire cities in a single blast, prepared to fire. It was her mark of total domination, a victory that would extinguish any hope humanity had left. But what the Empress didn't know was that the humans had been preparing for centuries, biding their time, waiting for the right moment to strike. On Earth's moon, hidden beneath the surface in the massive and secret lunar dock, 200 supercarriers lay dormant, waiting. These supercarriers were unlike anything the universe had ever seen, crafted from the deepest recesses of human ingenuity and collaboration. They were filled with fleets of advanced fighters, shock troops, and weapons that could rival even the might of the Empress's empire. The humans had kept their true strength hidden, pretending to be the weak species she had once dismissed. But now, the time had come. General Callum Kane stood before a massive digital map of the solar system, his face grim. All systems are go. The fleet is ready, his chief officer said, his voice full of resolve. We fight for humanity. We fight for Earth. This is our time to end her reign of terror, Kane declared. As the first salvo from the Empress's flagship approached Earth, the 200 supercarriers surged to life, each one, a colossal warship capable of independent destruction, powered up its shields, weapons, and engines in unison. They broke free from the lunar dock like a wave of steel, emerging from their underground lairs. The Empress, watching from her flagship, had been anticipating a full planetary bombardment, but what she saw instead was a fleet of 200 massive ships, each armed to the teeth with weaponry she had never encountered. A chill ran down her spine. The humans had not only survived, they had evolved. What is this? The Empress growled. There should be nothing left to resist. The humans, however, had a different plan. They didn't just fight with their ships, they fought with everything they had. The 200 supercarriers unleashed a barrage of missiles, energy blasts, and fighter squadrons in perfect coordination. The fleet moved as one, like a swarm of vengeful hornets, their weapons burning with the fury of years of oppression. The Empress's fleet, though formidable, was overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the human response. Massive energy shields clashed with the waves of firepower, but the humans were relentless. Fighters from the supercarriers darted like hornets, picking off the enemy ships one by one, while the supercarriers themselves carved their way through the enemy lines. The battle raged across the stars, a cataclysmic event that shook the very fabric of space itself. The Empress's ships were big, but they were slow and cumbersome. The humans were fast, and they were everywhere. As the battle wore on, the alien Empress realized too late that her empire was crumbling before her eyes. In the heart of the battle, General Kane's voice crackled over the comms. We have them on the ropes. Target their flagship. The 200 supercarriers, working in flawless unison, shifted their focus to the Vanguard of Ascension. The massive warship, once untouchable, was now surrounded by an unrelenting barrage of missiles, EMP pulses, and ion cannons. The Empress's ship tried to retaliate, but the humans were too quick, too precise. With a final, decisive strike, the flagship's main reactor exploded in a brilliant flash, sending shockwaves across the battlefield. The Empress's arrogance had finally been shattered. The humans had won. The Empress's empire was no more. In the aftermath, the humans did not simply celebrate, they mourned the losses, the lives that had been taken from them, but they also knew that they had broken the cycle of oppression. The galaxy would never forget the day humanity rose from the ashes and turned the tide of war. The alien Empress, once so certain of her superiority, had learned a harsh truth: never underestimate humanity, for in their hearts, they carried a fire that no empire could ever extinguish. And now, they were free. The end. The alien Empress's arrogance broken, humanity's 200 supercarriers strike back. Part 2. The galaxy was a vastly different place now. The shockwaves from the destruction of the Empress's flagship rippled across the universe, signaling not just the fall of a tyrant but the rise of a new force. The destruction of the vanguard of ascension had sent shockwaves through the hearts of every empire that had once viewed humanity as a speck of dust in the grand scheme of the cosmos. The balance of power had shifted, and the galaxy was watching. But victory did not come without its cost. The battle had taken a heavy toll on both sides. While the humans had emerged victorious, the damage to their fleet was significant. Dozens of supercarriers were damaged or crippled, and countless fighters had been lost in the chaos of the final assault. Despite this, General Kane and his fleet had one thing that the Empress never had: resilience. Humanity's victory on that fateful day had not only ended an oppressive regime but had also opened a door for new challenges, alliances, and responsibilities. The void left by the Empress's empire was vast, and while the human race had earned its place in the galaxy, they now faced a far more complex future than they could have imagined. Months after the final battle, the surviving fleets of the Empress's forces, remnants of her once mighty armada, fled into the far reaches of space, scattered like dust in the wind. Yet, whispers of her existence persisted. There were rumors that the Empress had survived, her body lost, but her consciousness now residing within an ancient alien artifact, a relic of power older than the galaxy itself. The remnants of her empire were not entirely destroyed. Her generals, many of whom had fled with their fleets, had started to regroup, preparing for a counterattack. But they would not be fighting a defenseless humanity this time. Humanity had learned, adapted, and evolved from the brutal lessons of war. They now knew how to strike back, and they were ready. General Kane stood on the bridge of the Aurora, one of the remaining supercarriers. His face, weathered and grim, looked out over the vast expanse of space as it stretched before him. The war was far from over, and the galaxy still hung in the balance. The Empress might have been defeated, but her legacy, the fear and terror she had instilled, lingered like a shadow. "We've broken their fleet," Kane said, his voice low but firm, "but we must remain vigilant. Her generals will not give up so easily. They'll come for us again, and when they do, we'll be ready." One of his officers approached, carrying a data pad. "General, we've received an encrypted transmission from the Kreenox Coalition. They're asking for a meeting. They want to discuss terms of an alliance." The Kreenox, longtime enemies of the Empress, had watched from the sidelines, waiting for humanity to make its move. With the Empress's empire now shattered, the Kreenox saw an opportunity to shift allegiances. Their message was simple: the enemy of my enemy is my ally. Kane nodded, a heavy thought crossing his mind. The galaxy was filled with dangers, old and new. But if humanity could forge alliances, if they could stand together with other oppressed species, perhaps they could avoid the mistakes of the past and build a better future. "Set up the meeting," Kane said. "It's time to show the galaxy that humanity will lead with strength and with honor." The diplomatic meeting was set aboard the Elysium, a neutral space station on the edge of the Kreenox-controlled territory. General Kane, along with the leaders of several human factions, stood ready for what was one of the most important decisions in the history of humankind. Across from them sat the Kreenox emissaries, their cold, calculating eyes focused on the humans before them. The Kreenox were a reptilian species, with scales of shimmering silver and eyes that glowed with an intelligence far older than their appearance suggested. Their empire had long been at odds with the Empress's forces, and now, they were willing to extend a hand of cooperation. "We have watched you, humans," said the Kreenox representative, a tall, imposing figure with sharp features. Your victory over the Empress is a testament to your strength. But it is not enough to simply destroy one empire. The galaxy is vast, and there will be others who seek to conquer. We propose an alliance, a coalition of species to defend against the remnants of the Empress's forces and to bring peace to the galaxy. Kane studied the Kreenox leader carefully, weighing his words. It was a tempting offer, but Kane had learned not to trust so easily. The humans had been betrayed before. Yet, there was a truth to what the Kreenox were saying. The Empress was only the beginning. There were countless threats in the galaxy, some old, some new, that would rise up in the power vacuum her empire had left behind. "We're not interested in just a temporary alliance," Kane replied, his voice steady. "We want a lasting peace, a galaxy where no species is oppressed, where every world has the chance to thrive. If that's what you're offering, we'll stand by you. But we will never again bend the knee to any empire, whether it's the Empress or anyone else." The Kreenox leader's eyes glinted with approval. "We do not seek to rule, we seek to protect. We offer you our knowledge, our technology, and our strength. Together, we can forge a new future, one that is not ruled by fear, but by cooperation." After a long pause, General Kane extended his hand. "Then we have an alliance." The two leaders shook hands, sealing a new chapter in the galaxy's history. Humanity, once a fledgling species on the brink of extinction, was now poised to lead, not with arrogance, but with a hard-earned wisdom and strength that no one, human or alien, could ignore. The war against the remnants of the Empress's forces was not over, but humanity had proven its worth. It was no longer a question of whether they could survive, it was a question of how they would shape the future. And as long as the Supercarriers remained in the skies, as long as the legacy of the Empress's arrogance was broken, humanity would stand as a beacon of hope, a symbol of the unyielding will to fight for a better tomorrow. The galaxy would never forget the day when humanity rose up and shattered the chains of oppression, and the Supercarriers would forever remind them that, no matter the odds, humanity would always strike back. The end. The alien Empress's arrogance broken, humanity's 200 Supercarriers strike back. Part 3. The alliance between humanity and the Kreenox was still fresh, but it had already begun to bear fruit. The Kreenox had shared with the humans the secrets of their advanced cloaking technology and electromagnetic pulse weapons. Humanity, ever the quick learner, had adapted and incorporated these innovations into their already formidable fleet of supercarriers. Now, humanity wasn't just defending itself, it was becoming a powerhouse capable of challenging any galactic empire, even the remnants of the Empress's forces. Yet, in the dark corners of the galaxy, the Empress's influence wasn't so easily erased. Her generals, once loyal to her vision of domination, had begun to regroup and form an insurgency. These were not just any generals, they were veterans of countless battles, seasoned and cunning. They knew the galaxy, its politics, its weaknesses, and they had begun to sow chaos. General Kane stood on the bridge of the Aurora, his eyes fixed on the star charts displayed before him. The battle was far from over. As much as the destruction of the vanguard of Ascension had been a symbolic victory, the war had sparked 1,000 fires across the galaxy. The remnants of the Empress's forces had begun rallying under the banner of the Iron Legion, led by the infamous General Arrogance, once the Empress's right-hand commander. "We've tracked the movements of the Iron Legion, sir," Lieutenant Soren reported, her voice urgent. "They're moving toward the planet Illither, an old mining colony. Intelligence suggests they're gathering forces, possibly preparing for something bigger." Kane frowned. Illither was located in a region of space that was rich in resources but strategically unimportant. Why would the Iron Legion risk exposing themselves there? "Send a reconnaissance team," Kane ordered. "I want to know exactly what they're planning. We'll meet them at Illither." Days later, the Aurora and a small fleet of Kreenox warships arrived in orbit around Illither. The once bustling mining world had been turned into a ghost planet, its atmosphere thin and toxic from years of exploitation. But now, it was the site of something far more ominous. A massive fleet of warships, bearing the insignia of the Iron Legion, was gathering in the shadows of the planet. These were not ships of ordinary design. They were old, ancient vessels salvaged from the depths of the Empress's fallen empire, refitted and upgraded with the most brutal technology available. Their hulls were scarred, their engines glowing with an eerie light, and their weapons were powerful enough to reduce entire fleets to debris. Kane's stomach churned as he studied the fleet. This was no mere raid, it was a full-scale invasion force. The Iron Legion was preparing for war on a scale humanity had never faced. Lieutenant Soren, what's our status? Kane asked. We're ready, General, she replied. The fleet is in position. The Kreenox ships have cloaked, and we've already detected multiple energy signatures from their ships. They're gathering resources, possibly for some kind of weapon. Kane's mind raced. If the Iron Legion was building a weapon on Illithor, it could be the key to tipping the balance of power. We need to destroy whatever they're constructing. Full assault. I want those ships disabled and that weapon neutralized before they can fire a single shot. The battle for Illithor began with a blinding flash of energy as the humans and their Kreenox allies launched their attack. The Supercarriers surged forward, their massive weapons lashing out, tearing into the Iron Legion's ships. The Kreenox fighters, with their cloaking devices, darted in and out of the enemy lines, striking without warning. The human fleet, far more agile than its adversaries, outmaneuvered the massive Iron Legion warships. But the Iron Legion was no slouch. Their ships were built for one thing, destruction. Their heavy, relentless bombardments pounded the human and Kreenox ships, sending waves of debris into space. It was a battle of attrition, and both sides were determined to win. The real danger, however, lay beneath the surface of Illithor itself. The Iron Legion had begun to build a doomsday weapon, a massive particle cannon capable of obliterating entire fleets with a single shot. If they completed it, the tides of war would turn against humanity, and the galaxy would fall back into the dark ages of the Empress's rule. We need to get to that weapon, now, Kane shouted over the comms. All units, break off and head to the surface. We'll take it out before they finish. The Aurora descended into the planet's toxic atmosphere, its shields glowing brightly as it cut through the ion storms. The Kreenox ships followed, and together, the combined fleet raced toward the underground facility where the weapon was being built. The underground base was a labyrinth of tunnels and caverns, its walls lined with ancient alien technology. At the heart of the base, the particle cannon stood, massive, humbling in its scope, a testament to the destruction it could bring. General Alaron, the leader of the Iron Legion, stood beside the weapon, a cold grin on his face. You're too late, humans, he sneered. The Empress's legacy will live on. You will never stop us. Kane's voice rang out from the intercom. You're wrong, Alaron. The Empress's empire is finished, and so are you. A battle erupted within the facility. The Iron Legion's elite shock troops fought fiercely, but humanity and the Kreenox were unstoppable. They fought with the strength of their past, their alliances, and their unyielding spirit. For every Iron Legion soldier that fell, a human or Kreenox warrior stood taller, pushing forward. As Kane reached the core of the facility, he saw Alaron standing near the control console. You won't destroy it, Alaron spat. This weapon will finish what the Empress started. But Kane wasn't about to let that happen. With a single motion, he activated the override switch, deactivating the particle cannon. The entire base began to shake as the weapon powered down. This is where your empire ends, Alaron, Kane said, his voice cold and final. And this is where humanity rises. Alaron's eyes widened in disbelief as the base began to collapse around them. With a last, desperate move, he charged at Kane, but it was too late. The facility crumbled into the planet's depths, taking the Iron Legion's dreams of vengeance with it. As the battle for Illithor ended, the galaxy witnessed another monumental shift. The Iron Legion, once thought to be an invincible force, had been broken. Their plans had been foiled, and their weapons destroyed. Humanity had proven, once again, that their spirit could not be crushed. Kane looked out over the wreckage of the Iron Legion's fleet, his expression hardening. This isn't over. There are still others out there, other forces that will try to rise from the ashes, but we will be ready. The Supercarriers, now reinforced with Kreenox technology and bolstered by the determination of every human who had fought, stood as a testament to what humanity had become, a force that no empire, no tyrant, could ever again hope to control. The battle for the galaxy had only just begun, but humanity was no longer just a survivor. They were a power in their own right, and they would fight until the very end for their freedom and for the future of the stars. The end, for now. The alien Empress's arrogance broken, humanity's 200 supercarriers strike back. Part 4. The victory at Illithor had reverberated across the galaxy. The remnants of the Iron Legion were in disarray, their forces scattered and leaderless. For the first time since humanity's first encounter with the alien empires, the balance of power had truly shifted. But as the last of the Iron Legion's warships drifted into the void, another danger loomed on the horizon, one that had been quietly brewing in the background, unnoticed by the human forces. The destruction of the Empress's empire had created a vacuum in the galaxy, and where there was a vacuum, others would rise, far beyond the reach of humanity's supercarriers. In the dark corners of the universe, new players had begun to stir. Old alliances, now shattered, were reforming, and new threats were emerging, some ancient, some unknown. It had been 2 weeks since the Battle of Illithor. General Kane stood on the bridge of the Aurora, watching as the fleet made its way toward a new system. The alliance with the Kreenoks had proven to be a strong one, but as more species from the galaxy joined their cause, Kane couldn't shake the feeling that they were stepping into a far larger game, one that had been in motion long before humanity had ever been involved. "General, we're entering the Kovena Expanse," Lieutenant Soren said, her voice tight with urgency. "Scans show several unidentified ships in the vicinity. They're not responding to our hails." Kane's eyes narrowed as he glanced at the tactical map. The Kovena Expanse was known for its dense nebulae and the asteroid fields that hid ships and fleets alike. It was a perfect hiding place for any faction trying to remain undetected, or for those with darker motives. "Prepare the fleet," Kane ordered. "I don't like this. We're going in cautious. No one goes anywhere without a reason." As they entered the expanse, the tension on the bridge was palpable. The star maps displayed only limited data, everything beyond the nebula was a blur of static. It was a perfect place for an ambush. Suddenly, the sensors blared to life. "Multiple contacts," the chief officer shouted. "They're emerging from the nebula." Before anyone could react, a massive fleet materialized from the shadows of the asteroid field. They were unlike anything Kane had ever seen, sleek, black warships with jagged, angular designs. Their hulls seemed to absorb the light around them, blending seamlessly into the dark expanse. These were ships of war, and they were powerful. There were hundreds of them. "Identify them," Kane barked. "They're not from any known species in our database," Soren replied. "They've activated weapons systems. They're targeting us." The silence on the bridge was deafening. The mysterious fleet attacked with precision. Their weapons unleashed bright energy pulses, raking across the human fleet and tearing into their supercarriers. The Aurora shook under the barrage, and Kane could hear the alarms blaring throughout the ship. The Kreenoks warships darted in to return fire, but even their cloaked ships were being targeted. "They're using some kind of advanced energy-draining tech," Lieutenant Soren said, struggling to keep her composure. "Our shields are losing power fast. Weapons are offline." Kane's mind raced. Whoever these enemies were, they were highly advanced, and their tactics were ruthlessly efficient. Humanity had fought against powerful fleets before, but this was different. This wasn't just a battle for survival, it was a battle to understand an entirely new kind of warfare. "We need to break out of their firing range," Kane ordered. "Move the fleet back, get us clear." The supercarriers attempted to retreat, but the enemy fleet followed closely, relentlessly hammering the human ships. Several of the smaller Kreenoks ships had already been disabled, their hulls blackened and smoldering in space. The humans were starting to lose ground. "General," Soren cried, "their flagship is advancing. It's bigger than anything we've seen before. It's a mobile weapon. They're preparing to fire." Kane's blood ran cold. "Target that flagship. All ships. Concentrate fire." But it was too late. The enemy flagship unleashed a colossal blast of energy from its core, striking the Aurora directly. The supercarrier's hull groaned as the blast tore into it, sending shockwaves through the ship. The entire fleet was rocked by the impact. Systems across the Aurora flickered and went dark. "Get us out of here," Kane yelled. But the Aurora was no longer responding. Its engines were failing. "We've lost power to our main thrusters, General," the chief officer reported, his voice strained. "We're dead in the water." The enemy fleet loomed closer, now preparing for the final strike. Kane had seen the writing on the wall, they were not going to make it out of this. The destruction of the Aurora would be the first blow in what might be the end of humanity's push for freedom. But just as the enemy flagship prepared to deliver the final blow, the unthinkable happened. A surge of energy, not from the human fleet, but from the deep within the expanse itself, erupted in a burst of light so bright it was almost blinding. The energy pulse struck the enemy flagship, sending it reeling. The mysterious fleet suddenly faltered, their ships staggering as their systems overloaded. What the hell just happened? Soren gasped, staring at the readings. I don't know, Kane replied, his eyes scanning the rapidly changing battlefield, but I'll take it. The pulse hit again, this time spreading through the entire enemy fleet. Their ships began to retreat, destabilizing, their once precise movements now erratic. The enemy flagship, still struggling to maintain control, was disabled, its massive frame listing as it drifted into the void. Kane wasn't about to waste a second. Get us moving. Now. Lock on to the nearest escape route. We're not finished yet. The human fleet, battered and broken, began to pull back, fighting against the enemy's advance. The Kreenox ships provided cover, firing at the retreating fleet to buy them precious seconds. As the Aurora limped away, Kane realized something profound. The galaxy had just revealed yet another layer of mystery. Whoever these new enemies were, they weren't just another faction vying for control. They had powers beyond anything humanity could understand. And this battle had been only the beginning of a new war, one that would challenge everything humanity had fought for. Sir, we've got a transmission, Soren said. It's from the Kreenox. They want to know our next move. Kane stood still for a moment, his thoughts racing. Humanity had survived countless enemies, from the Zorvax to the remnants of the Empress's empire. But this was different. Whoever these mysterious enemies were, they had power unlike anything seen before. We'll regroup, Kane said finally, determination in his voice. We'll rebuild the fleet, and we'll find out who is behind this. One way or another, we're going to win this war. As the Aurora drifted into the dark reaches of the expanse, Kane's mind turned to the future. The galaxy had shifted once again, and humanity was at the heart of a storm that could either save or destroy them. The Supercarriers, the symbol of human strength and resilience, would fight on. The war was far from over, and this time, humanity would have to fight not just to survive, but to unravel the greatest mystery of all. The end, for now. The alien Empress's arrogance broken, humanity's 200 supercarriers strike back. Part 5. The galaxy had changed irrevocably. General Kane stared out into the vast expanse of space, deep in thought. The battle at the Covena Expanse had left humanity's fleet wounded but not defeated. Their supercarriers, though battered, still held a formidable presence. But the mysterious fleet they had encountered, its weapons and technology far beyond anything humanity had ever seen, had sent ripples through their strategic plans. The unknown enemy that had attacked them was not like any species humanity had encountered before. It was as if they were a ghost, a force with no clear origin or identity. And yet their power was undeniable. They had come from the very depths of the expanse itself, seemingly appearing from nowhere, with advanced energy-dominating technology that had caught humanity's fleet completely off guard. We've barely survived this, Kane muttered, pacing in the command center. But it's clear now, we're dealing with something ancient, something beyond the reach of everything we know. If we don't understand what we're facing, we'll never be able to fight it. The Aurora limped into orbit around a nearby moon, its damage substantial, but the crew had performed miracles in keeping the ship functional. Kane had taken the moment to gather himself, but now was not the time for hesitation. Their enemies were not just hiding, they were watching, waiting for the next move. General, we've just received a communiqué from the Kreenox, Lieutenant Soren announced, her voice heavy with the weight of uncertainty. They want to convene an emergency council. They believe they've identified the origin of the enemy fleet. Kane raised an eyebrow. Finally, something concrete. Soren nodded, her fingers dancing over the control panel as she patched in the transmission. On the screen before them, the reptilian form of Vrax, the Kreenox ambassador, appeared. His eyes glowed faintly with a luminescent sheen, and his scales shimmered in the low light of the war room. The message he delivered was grave. We have confirmed it, Vrax said, his voice deep and resonant. The fleet you encountered in the Covena Expanse was not just an isolated force. It is the harbinger of something much larger, a long-forgotten species known as the Erratica. Kane's blood ran cold. The name meant nothing to him, but the intensity in Vrax's voice spoke volumes. The Erratica were once a dominant species in the galaxy, predating even the rise of the Empress's empire. Vrax continued. They were an ancient, nearly godlike race that controlled vast portions of the galaxy with their advanced technology. But something happened to them. A catastrophic event caused them to vanish from the known galaxy millennia ago. Kane clenched his fists. If they're so ancient, why didn't anyone know about them? The Erratica disappeared, taking their knowledge and their fleets into the shadows, Vrax said. But they left behind artifacts, ruins scattered across the galaxy. Over time, other civilizations forgot about them, but some remained. Those artifacts, their technology, are what have allowed these fragments of their race to survive and to rebuild. So, this fleet we encountered, Kane began, is the Vanguard. Vrax interrupted. A small part of their rebirth. The fleet is not their full strength, but they've found a way to restore their power. These Erratica have one purpose: to reclaim what they once controlled, and to eliminate any who stand in their way. A chill ran down Kane's spine. The galaxy was full of threats, but this was something entirely different. The Empress had been a conqueror, but the Erratica were an ancient scourge, a species that had once dominated the stars with near godlike technology. They had vanished long ago, but now they were returning. We have to stop them, Kane said, his voice resolute. We can't let them rebuild their empire. Vrax nodded grimly. The Kreenoks have begun to mobilize their fleets, but this war cannot be won with force alone. We must understand the Erratica's technology and their weaknesses. If we don't, we will be wiped out. We must strike at their core. Kane turned to his officers, who were listening in rapt attention. Prepare the fleet. We're heading into the Erratica's territory. This is no longer just about survival. It's about preventing the rise of a galactic empire that would crush everything we've fought for. The Supercarriers of humanity, bolstered by their Kreenoks allies, had been through countless battles, but this would be different. The Erratica weren't a simple threat, they were a force unlike any humanity had ever faced. Kane knew that any direct confrontation could result in their annihilation, but there was no choice. The galaxy needed to know that humanity would never bow to any empire, no matter how powerful. The Aurora led the charge as they made their way deeper into Erratica space. Their destination, the heart of the ancient Erratica Empire, a place marked only in the legends and myths of the galaxy, Erraticon, the homeworld of the Erratica. But it wasn't just an old planet, it was a living relic, a place where the keys to the Erratica's power lay hidden. We're nearing the Erratica system, General, Soren reported as the tactical map updated. There's a dense asteroid field ahead, and scans show multiple signatures. They're expecting us. Of course they are, Kane muttered. No matter. This is it. We're going in. As they entered the Erratica system, the fleet came face to face with the remnants of an ancient and horrifying sight, massive, twisted space stations orbiting around the blackened planet of Erraticon. The ships that drifted in the space around it were unlike anything humanity had ever seen, gargantuan structures, constructed of dark metals, hovering with an eerie, unnatural stillness. Kane's eyes narrowed. This place feels wrong. Get ready for anything. Suddenly, the calm silence of space shattered as the Erratica fleet appeared from the shadows of the ancient stations, their ships rising up with deadly precision. Brace for impact, Kane ordered, just as a series of energy blasts tore through space, impacting the leading human supercarriers. The battle began, fierce and brutal, as both sides clashed in the heart of the Erratica system. Humanity's ships fired back, launching barrages of missiles and energy beams, but the Erratica ships proved to be far more resilient than anything they had encountered before. Their hulls were covered in a strange, reflective material that absorbed energy, making it nearly impossible to pierce their defenses. They're adapting, Soren shouted from the communications station. Every shot we land seems to trigger some kind of countermeasure. Kane gritted his teeth. We need to find a way to disable their energy-absorbing tech. If we can knock out their shields, we can take them down. The battle raged on, with the Supercarriers and their allies fighting against impossible odds. But Kane knew this was only the beginning. The Erratica were not going to just roll over. They had been lying in wait, building their strength, and now they had come for the galaxy. General, Soren called out urgently. We've located their central command ship, the Empress. If we take that out, we can cripple their coordination. Then that's where we go, Kane said. All ships, focus fire on the Empress. If we can break their command, the rest of them will fall. With the fleet concentrated on the central command ship, Kane led the charge, rallying his forces with a battle cry that resonated across the calms. Humanity's supercarriers surged forward, with Kreenox ships darting through the asteroid fields, harassing the Eradika warships. The battle was fierce, and as the Empress finally began to crack under the barrage, Kane knew one thing for certain: this was no longer about surviving. It was about victory. The fate of the galaxy rested in their hands. The alien Empress's arrogance broken, humanity's 200 supercarriers strike back. Part 6. The stars of the galaxy had barely begun to settle after the devastating clash with the Eradika when a new, ominous force emerged from the shadows, one that threatened to unravel everything humanity had fought for. The battle at Eradicon had been hard won, but Kane knew better than to believe that the galaxy would allow them to rest on their laurels. The victory had been only a temporary reprieve, and the power vacuum left by the Eradika's defeat would surely give rise to even greater dangers. But humanity, bolstered by their Kreenox allies, had shown the galaxy what they were capable of. No one, no matter how ancient or powerful, would break their spirit. On the bridge of the Aurora, General Kane stood, eyes fixed on the star charts. The victory over the Eradika had cost them dearly. Several of their supercarriers had been severely damaged, and their fleet, though still large and powerful, was in need of repairs. They had barely managed to escape with their lives after the battle, and yet there was no time for rest. The galaxy had not stopped spinning, and new threats were already on the horizon. General, we're picking up an encrypted transmission, Lieutenant Soren reported, her face tense. It's coming from a classified channel. It's a warning. Kane narrowed his eyes. Put it through. The image of a grim-faced Kreenox leader, Ambassador Vrax, appeared on the screen. General Kane, Vrax began, his voice low and somber. You need to prepare. Something even more dangerous than the Eradika has awakened. Kane's heart skipped a beat. What is it, Vrax? The Taller, Vrax said, his voice heavy with foreboding. They are an ancient, predatory species, older than even the Eradika. They have been in hiding for eons, their presence cloaked by the very fabric of space. But their time has come. The Taller have returned, and they are not here to negotiate. Kane's blood ran cold. The name Taller echoed in his mind, but it was a term he had only heard in whispered legends. The Taller were a race of beings said to be so powerful that even the gods of the old universe feared them. A species that didn't conquer, it devoured. Whole civilizations, entire star systems, were said to be their prey, and now they were coming. How do we stop them? Kane demanded, his voice firm despite the fear that gnawed at him. The Taller feed on energy, Vrax explained. They drain the life force of entire systems. The Eradika were a threat, but the Taller, they are beyond anything we've faced. They do not simply conquer, they consume, and they are already moving toward the core of the galaxy. Kane clenched his fists. What's their next move? They're headed for our sector, Vrax said, his eyes narrowing. The Taller have marked it as their next feast. If we do not stop them before they reach our homeworlds, we will lose everything. Kane's mind raced. The situation was dire, but humanity had always survived against impossible odds. They had proven time and time again that they could adapt, that they could fight back. But the Taller, they were something else entirely. We need to form an alliance, Kane said. All the factions, the Kreenox, the Varelians, the Saurian, every species who has a stake in this galaxy must unite. We face extinction if we do not. We are already contacting other allies, Vrax replied. But there is something else you need to know. The Taller are not alone. There is another force at their back, a faction that controls them. They are led by a being known only as the Overseer. Great, Kane muttered. A puppet master behind them. What do we know about this Overseer? Very little, Vrax admitted. But our intelligence suggests that the Overseer is the one who has awakened the Taller. The Overseer is not like anything we've encountered. It is said to be a being of pure consciousness, transcending the limits of corporeal existence. Some say it can manipulate space itself. Kane gritted his teeth. The odds were stacked higher than ever. Then we'll have to strike at the Overseer. We take out the puppet master. and we take out the Taller. Vrax gave a slow nod. If that is the only way, then we shall help you. But it will not be easy. The Taller are not bound by the same rules as other species. They do not fear death, they feed on it. The human fleet, now reinforced by a coalition of allies from across the galaxy, moved toward the Taller's last known location, the system of Nuven. Deep in the galactic core, the atmosphere on the Aurora was tense, every crew member aware that they were heading toward a force capable of unimaginable destruction. Kane stood in front of the command center's main viewport, watching as the stars streaked by, their light fading into the cold, empty blackness. He knew that this mission could very well be their last. The Taller were unlike any enemy humanity had ever faced. Nothing in the galaxy had prepared them for something so alien, so vicious. And the Overseer, it was a presence that threatened to unravel the very fabric of the universe. "Sir, we're approaching Nuven," Lieutenant Soren reported, breaking Kane from his thoughts. "We're getting strange readings. Something's wrong. The entire system is dark. It's almost like the stars themselves are being drained." Kane's jaw tightened. "They're here. Ready the fleet. Prepare for battle." As the fleet entered the Nuven system, the stars ahead flickered and dimmed. There was an unnatural silence, a sense of foreboding in the air that made even the most battle-hardened crew members uneasy. And then, in the distance, they saw it. A massive, blackened structure hung in the void, an ancient space station, long abandoned, now reactivated by the power of the Taller. It was a strange, organic structure, its twisted metal interwoven with veins of glowing energy, pulsing with a sickly light. This was the heart of the Taller's power, a station known only as the Feeder, capable of harnessing and amplifying the energy drained from entire star systems. Kane knew that if they didn't destroy the Feeder soon, it would be too late. The Taller's insatiable hunger for energy would spread from system to system, draining every world in its path. "All ships, target the Feeder," Kane ordered. "We're going to take it down before it can drain another star." As the fleet charged forward, energy beams and missiles lit up the dark void, striking the Feeder with the full force of the human and Kreenux fleets. But as they made their assault, something unexpected happened. The Feeder seemed to come alive, its energy field swirling and warping the very space around it. Then, the Taller struck. Massive, shadowy ships, tens of them, emerged from the depths of the station, their jagged forms ripping through space with terrifying speed. These ships were not like any conventional warships. They were part of the Taller, living vessels that thrived on the energy they consumed. Kane's heart pounded. There was no time for second thoughts. Focus fire on the Taller ships, disable their weapons and take down their shields. The battle erupted in full force as the fleet collided with the Taller ships. But the Taller were unlike anything they had encountered before. Their ships moved with an unnatural, erratic speed, constantly shifting in and out of space, making them nearly impossible to target. But humanity was resilient. They had survived the Empress's empire, they had defeated the Erratica, and they would face down the Taller, no matter how formidable the threat. The Aurora fired its main cannon at the Feeder, the massive blast ripping through the station's core. But the station was far more resilient than they had imagined, and the Taller were quick to retaliate. "General," Soren shouted, their leader, "it's on the Feeder. We have to go in, now." "Then let's finish this," Kane said, his voice steady. "Prepare the boarding teams. We're going in."